you can do something difficult if you work and if you continue to show up and be loyal and dedicated enough to see it through. We are so busy cosplaying corporate and pretending to be somebody else that sometimes we forget who we really are in everything. When we show up in workplaces as the buttoned up representative, the person who we want other people to think of us as, we leave parts of our self, parts of our story at the door.
Hey, change makers and visionaries. This is Reimagining Community, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are reshaping the world, one community at a time. I'm your host, Garland Fuller, and every episode is a radical act of connection. We're not just talking about change, we're breaking down how real people are creating it right here, right now. This podcast is more than conversations. It's a bridge where we are sharing stories that offer insight and inspiration. Whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, volunteer, artist, or an organizational leader, this is your space to listen and learn. This is your call to create impact in the communities you hold dear and that hold you up. Let's reimagine what's possible together.
Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Community. This is the third Space Academy solo series where we reimagine the spaces between home and work and the ones that hold our stories, spark our ideas, and remind us we belong. I am Garland, and this episode I am telling you my story. I don't think I could do this work. I don't think I could do these episodes without telling you about myself. Oddly enough, I feel like I've been sharing more than I've ever shared online. My LinkedIn is filled with far more personal stories than I think I have ever told in the workplace. I also am sharing more on Instagram, my newsletter. This year, I challenged myself. As you may know, my word of the year is release. And with that is releasing this idea that I need to show up in a certain way, be a certain type of person, create a certain image. While I am aware that is also, we're not 100% being every aspect of ourselves all the time, but I do feel like I have shown way more sides of myself this year than I have ever. It's a little, I don't want to say scary, but it's vulnerable. Certain parts of yourself, at least for me, I've kept for myself, and I don't think I'm sharing anything here that I, one, don't feel comfortable about people knowing. But I do know that when we show up in workplaces as the buttoned up representative, the person who we want other people to think of us as, we leave parts of our self, parts of our story at the door. And that's, I think, a big part of why third spaces for me are such a great opportunity to peel back some of those layers, because we are so busy cosplaying corporate and pretending to be somebody else that sometimes we forget who we really are in everything. And what I realize is that when we have opportunities to show up fully as ourselves, it becomes easier to do that when we don't have to pretend. So I am going to walk you through the thread. Hopefully you can see the thread of how I got into doing people, work, operations, training and learning and development work. And then also why this Third Space Academy is pivotal and critical for me at this time. It has been a journey. Don't get me wrong. I started this at the beginning of this year. I feel like it's taken me this amount of time to finally release and let go. And I wouldn't say I've completely let go everything, but I feel like I've let go so much more than ever. And I feel like there's still more to let go of as I continue this year. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to, how I'd say organizations, third spaces have shown up for me in my life. As I think when you're young and you're a kid or even a young adult, you don't really know or think about these things, but then you can look back and see the little clues and the little things that show you, okay, seems to be a thing for you. This seems to be something that you're working on. So I would say the first time I probably consciously became a part of a group was my track and cross country teams in high school. I remember deciding I wanted to do a sport or just wanted to do something after school. And that was the thing for me that seemed like, okay, this is something I can manage. The track team that I was a part of, because I went to a girls' school, it was very much, we would train in the gym maybe 3 times a week, and then we would go to the actual track, I think another 2 times a week. But then our coach was really just, I think, trying to ensure that we got strength and conditioning training as well as actual practice on a track. And so we did a lot of practice. And I think in those early days, I had never really run with a group. I didn't probably even see myself as an athlete at that point in time. But what I did know about myself is that I was competitive, still probably competitive to this day, but not in the same way, probably more competing against myself because I feel like I'm harder on myself than anybody else will be. But just competing and wanting to do well at the meets. Every week, we would do our different conditioning and strength routines and practices, and then we would have track meets. Sometimes at the end of the week, sometimes we would do like invitational meets where you have to take the van and go somewhere super far into another area within the city. And so I became very much of that, I guess, athlete that really wanted to do well when it was go time. And I found that the way to do that was to really push myself in practice. And I did really well. I wasn't by any means a student athlete, didn't get recruited anywhere to go to college. I don't think that was even my motivation. However, the idea of going to a space where I had to focus on doing better, being better, strengthening myself, pushing myself, growing, that I think was one of the first spaces that really helped me to realize you can do something difficult if you work at it and if you continue to show up and be loyal and dedicated enough to see it through. And so from a third space perspective, I would say that track and field experience, as well as my cross-country experience, helped me to really show that I could do something difficult and show up continuously in order to follow through. So that's something to hold. I'd say the next time third spaces became, I think, a big part for me was when I was in college. There were 2 spaces that were third spaces for me. One was this organization, which still is in existence today. It's called the National Association of Black Accountants. Shout out to NABA. Keep in mind, I did not become an accountant. I think I took an accounting class and realized very quickly that was not my ministry. However, what I learned by being in this student group was that I got all my fundamentals for interviewing, for internships, for doing networking, all of the kind of fundamental things that when you're a young professional or student becoming a professional, you need someone to show you the ropes or at least give you some pointers and open up their relationships and their networks to help you as you transition. And so that organization, I took on a leadership role. I think I was vice president of professional development. My role was to ensure that we had outreach with other organizations and bringing them to campus and making sure that the members within the student members had access to these professionals. We would have trainings or just have them come in to talk about stuff. And so I organized and coordinated a lot of that. And I think that's when I realized this is something that I like. The other, I'd say, third space that I did in college that I think influenced me heavily was I became a peer sexual health educator through the University Health Center. And so this was something we had to apply to. There was a whole admissions process, so to speak. I made it through the admissions process, and it was a 2-unit semester course. Each semester, we would learn about various topics within, I'd say, health. things that people would need to know about. And the premise for the program was that if you have any kind of reticence or you're not sure about sexual health information, it's easier to get this information from a peer than it is probably from an older adult. And so they trained us I think, to be able to handle sexual health information, deliver it. We would go into the dorms and deliver this information, sorority and fraternity houses, different student clubs, to deliver this information. One, for people to know that the services exist on the campus, but two, for their own health, so that way they can make better decisions. I think my public speaking skills were okay before, but I think after that, they were totally enhanced, because there is nothing scarier than getting up in front of a group of people and talking to them about sexually transmitted diseases, how to put on a condom, like very uncomfortable and oftentimes very personal things. And so having to stand up in front of a group of people, and this is college, mind you, so everything's still sniggering funny, or people, you don't necessarily know what their response is going to be when you're delivering this information. And so because I feel like I started there and I learned there how to do presentations, how to talk to people, I still honestly use some of those same things today. And I think is what has made me the kind of person that can go deep with people in a very short space of time, because I learned there's a certain way to go about doing those things. And if I didn't have that experience, I don't think I would probably be able to be as warm, approachable as I am with folks when I meet them. And I just learned so much in that time. I learned so much in terms of not judging people for making different decisions and choices with how they want to live their lives, what they choose to make their identity as it relates to the gender spectrum, in terms of sexual orientation, in terms of various practices and sex work and all these things that were, I think, taught to us. We learned a lot. And so I think it opened up my eyes and broadened my horizons to so much that there's very little, I don't say nothing shocks me, but a lot of it is do what you want. Everybody is living the life that works for them. And so as long as it's not harming, it's consensual, let people do what works for them. So that is a key part of that. I would also say at that point, I started realizing I had something around people. I started taking classes. And so that's what started my people journey. I would definitely say that over the course of my 20-year career, I've had an opportunity having those experiences to draw from them and then add on to them and learn more. I did my master's in human resource development, and as a result, learned a lot around how adult learning works, how people, when they are not children, but full adults, when you are trying to show them something or teach them something, they bring their own experiences to the table. They have their own frames of reference, their own associations. And so oftentimes it's trying to leverage those in order to teach something. And it doesn't always have to look one way, but you do have to have assessment tools. You have to design it a certain way. You have to implement and evaluate certain things. And so using various ways of doing that, whether you're doing it in a video capacity or in a audio capacity or live teaching, there's just ways to share information. And so learning that, I think, was super key for me. But over the course of my HR career, what I love the most, I honestly believe, was working with people and doing things around programming, whether it was building the first cohort style internship program for one of the organizations I worked at in Southern California, or developing the diversity recruitment outreach program for another organization where I had to have a lot of engagement with a lot of organizations in a very short space of time. I learned how to build digital programs in COVID, I think, because we just had to shut down and there was not a reason to stop reaching out to people. You just couldn't do it in the way that you used to. And then I'd say the transformative experience, the one that got me to decide, you know what, this is really your thing and you should keep doing this, is being on the board of a nonprofit trade organization where I assisted in helping them come up with their programming, their membership recruitment strategy, their sponsorship packages, and discerning how to go about doing that in a very short space of time, helping to bring in a marketing, helping to bring in a lot of, I'd say, tools that we still use today in order to continue to do outreach and in order to serve the members that we have. I don't think I realized how much I could do until I did it and then was able to do it in such a way that made it feel so different and so intentional. And so I want to take things from my playbook, things that I've learned, things that I've practiced myself, how I have turned myself into that person that people come to and ask questions about. That is, for me, why this Third Space Academy is so important. Because what I've learned is that community isn't just built, it's practiced. It's not built like in a vacuum, in a silo. You have to practice it. You have to have the behaviors. You have to tell the stories. You have to share the ideas. All of that is a practice, and it's a continuous practice over time. Myself, what I've noticed with Third Spaces is that they are a space, like I said, that's not home or work, but it's a space where we can learn certain things. And in my life, all of these different experiences have come out. I've learned things. I've taken these skills and I still apply them and use them today. It's also something that I feel like I'm more accountable when I show up and there's a group of people there that I know are going to support me, that make me feel like I belong, that allow me to try new things. If we don't have those kinds of spaces, I think developing them and growing them is critical. A big part of, I'd say, why Third Space Academy is also very important is because I feel like we're at a time right now coming into a very divisive, polarized time. There's different groups of people who are feeling so different that there's not any place they can meet in the middle. And I honestly can see Third Spaces being an opportunity to let those identities go and not necessarily saying forget them, but just not leading with them so that we can actually get back to humanity and who we are and what we enjoy. And so Third Spaces are where we can rehearse what we want to see. Third Spaces are where we can rehearse who we want to be. Third Spaces are places where we get to take the things that we've learned and put it in to the home and the workplaces that we go. And so if I can help people build better containers, better ways to do that so that we can create spaces for people to be able to be filled up, this is really, I think, brings me so much joy. I just wanted you all to get a sense of my story, understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I think when you see people pop out and say, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and you're like, what? How does this work? How is this coming together? Like, why? My hope is that this episode really allows you to see the why and see the thread and understand some of the experiences and stories that have undergirded getting me to this place. And I don't think anything is ever wasted. So every experience that you have is an opportunity to take that and use it for yourself. Nothing is just happening to you. It's also happening for you. And so when you realize this and you can put those pieces together, you can see so much more around what it is that you need to bring into the world. And so for me right now, this is key. And I'm almost dogged about it at this point because I just know that we need this. We need more connection. We need more growth. We need more opportunity for community and gathering. We need to ensure that people are not feeling this loneliness epidemic that is out here daily. If you listen to the other episodes of this podcast, 60% are feeling lonely on a daily basis. To me, that is alarming. And so if we can find a way to gather again and do it in a way that's intentional and allows people to come out of their shells, I feel like that is a total win. So I just want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you have your own third spaces, your own story, something that makes you say, gosh, I didn't realize how these things influenced my own ideas about the world or how I show up to different things, I want you to take a minute to think about places that you've been to, things that you've done, programs that you've been involved with, because I'm sure they have influenced you, taught you some things, and you may not have even realized it because oftentimes we just sometimes don't put it together. But I want to thank you for listening today. And this has been a wonderful episode. If you are interested in designing events, workplaces, or community spaces and want support, I'd love to partner with you as a speaker or a facilitator. If you are interested in joining Third Space Academy, please go to garlandfuller.com and set up some time to either connect with me or enroll in the course yourself. If you have teams, people that you already know, you already have a group of people and you're like, I'd love to take them through this program. What does that mean? Please connect and reach out to me, because this is not, for me, a one-time thing. This is like just the beginning of doing more of this. My hope is that this becomes something that I can do multiple times a year and possibly some follow-up on if there are specific parts of this 3P model, the people, place, and program model, that is of interest. And so please reach out. Again, info@garlandfuller.com. I look forward to seeing you in Third Space Academy. And just listening to Reimagining Community, because this is just the solo episodes. We're going to have more episodes as we go. But this was my, again, foray into releasing something that I had always wanted to do and thought was probably harder than it really is. So thank you so much. Alrighty, bye-bye.
If this conversation moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week we're bringing you more stories of real transformation. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tag the folks in your circle who need to hear this. Want to go deeper? Check out the Community Impact Collective. Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Now is the time. Are you in?